What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Muse podcast. Today is day one of 32 teams in 32 days, and I am giving my season preview and I'm dropping my season predictions for each NFL team this year. We are starting off with my hometown team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we look at the 2020 season. My prediction for the Pittsburgh Steelers that is on this podcast is I thought they would go 10-6. I thought they would drop a few trap games. And they somehow exceeded those expectations and also went beneath those expectations. So we look at that 2020 season. They end up going 12-4. They started off 11-0. They end up going 1-4 down the stretch. And of course, they end up getting, blown out in the playoffs against the Cleveland Browns. Really, really bad loss. It's one of those ones that's going to stick with you for a while. So let's start here. Let's go with the additions and re-signings of the Pittsburgh Steelers for this 2021 season. First is we got Juju on a very cheap deal. 1 year, $8 million. He had some other suitors. I think he was looking for, bigger, more guaranteed money, longer term contracts. So it's kind of a prove it year for Juju. We also stole Tyson Alualu. So he was supposed to sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The contract was done, but due to COVID, he didn't actually sign on the dotted line. The Pittsburgh Steelers ended up convincing him to come back to Pittsburgh. We re-up Cam Sutton, Chris Wormley, Vince Williams, Zach Banner, Ray McLeod, Joe Haig, Miles Killebrew, BJ Finney, and the new Pittsburgh Steeler Trey Turner. We look at the departures, and a lot of these guys are people that you've seen for quite a while with Pittsburgh, and that is Marquise Pouncey, Bud Dupree, David DeCastro, Steven Nelson, Mike Hilton, James Conner, Vance McDonald, Matt Filer, and Alejandro Villanueva. A lot of the offensive line is gone. And when we think back to, 3-4 years ago when the Steelers arguably had the best offensive line in the league, you would hear those names and you'd be like, wow, what a huge loss. And yeah, they are losses, but I'm going to get into why I don't think they are as detrimental as what some people are in the mainstream media are thinking. But before we get there, let's talk about the draft picks. Okay. So with the first round pick, I'm never a fan of taking a running back in the first round, but I do like Najee Harris. So that's who we got with the first round pick. Then we get Pat Freiermuth, tight end from Penn State, Kendrick Green, Buddy Johnson, Quincy Roche, and Trey Norwood. I think those are, some of the later round guys. Like I think Buddy Johnson could be a potential Vince Williams replacement down the line. Quincy Roche, I think, is going to be an immediate special teams help, and I think he's going to provide depth at that edge rusher position. And I think Trey Norwood's a guy that we could see maybe step up for a Mike Hilton. Let's talk about team strengths and weaknesses. We'll start off with the strengths, and I think the thing that jumps off the paper to me is defensive playmakers. So you look off of one edge, we have who should have been the defensive player of the year last year, probably the best pass rusher coming off the edge in the NFL, and that is TJ Watt. You look at the interior, you have Tuitt, you have Cam Hayward, two very underrated guys who can get the job done. So rushing the quarterback, we don't have to bring 5-6 guys in the years past. I think we can get it done a lot of the times with just that front four, which is a great feeling to have. We look in the middle of the defense, and we have Devin Bush, who's coming off a blown out knee. But if you really study the Pittsburgh Steelers, Devin Bush was just a difference maker. He prevents the Steelers from getting in so many mismatches because he's so athletic. I mean, he runs like a safety or a corner, but he's, the size of a middle linebacker. So I think he really helps the team. And I kind of expect him to take a little bit of a leap like a Devin White. If you watch for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he was probably the best defensive player on that field in the Super Bowl. And I think Devin Bush can be that same kind of guy. And then you look on the back end, we have the best ball hawk probably since Ed Reed at the safety position, and that is Minka Fitzpatrick. He's been balling out since he came to Pittsburgh. I mean, he was very good in Miami, but since he came to Pittsburgh, he's been such a difference maker. I mean, teams are purposely drawing up their offense to avoid Minka. It's crazy. And on the outside, you have one of the best solid veteran corners in football, and that is Joe Hayden. As far as team weaknesses, I know a lot of people are going to want to say it's going to be the offensive line. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But to me, I think their biggest weakness is going to be cornerback. So when I look at that, I think Mike Hilton loss was the biggest of the offseason. I know we lost potential Hall of Fame center Marquise Pouncey. I know we lost Bud Dupree to a huge contract, but the Mike Hilton loss really, I think, is going to impact this defense in a negative way. So we re-upped Cam Sutton. We lost Steven Nelson. So right now, Cam Sutton has played on the outside. He's played in the slot. So where do you put him? So if we put him on the outside, where right now that's where the rumor is, I don't know who's going to play that slot. Do you have a Brown, a Wade, an Arthur step up and play that slot? I'm not sure. Or do you bump Cam Sutton into the slot and you step up like a Justin Lane, James Pierre on the outside? I'm honestly not sure, and I'm a little bit worried about that opposite of Joe Hayden. We'll jump to biggest question mark, and I think without a doubt it has to be Ben Roethlisberger. Okay, so when we look at Ben Roethlisberger, at the end of the year, he just simply didn't look good. And I'm not going to fully blame Big Ben, okay? So hear me out. I think the Steelers devised a plan to stop Ben from taking hits, which I think was smart. So we really utilized the short passing game to not only protect Ben, but also supplement our running game that was pretty subpar last year. Here's the thing. Teams started to figure it out. And instead of having a counter to it, we just kept going back to the well. So my thing is, was that out of necessity because Ben can't push it down the field? Or was that just a bad play caller? We're going to find that out very, very soon. And I'm not exactly sure that answer. Was that also, indicative of the offensive line that they weren't good enough to, pass block for a 5-step drop? And when I talked about the offensive line, Villanueva just wasn't good last year. I know he's a great dude, great in the Pittsburgh area. We all root for him. And he's been good in the years past. This last year, he was getting abused on a regular basis. Marcus Pouncey's lost a few steps over the time. I mean, we saw the first play of the playoffs. He snapped it over Ben's head. Now, that's just kind of an anomaly, right? But when we look at it, I think he's a guy who's lost a few steps. I thought David DeCastro has been a guy who's kind of been on the slide for a few years now. Matt Filer, I thought he was outplayed simply by Dotson last year. So when we look at it, Turner for DeCastro, I think it's kind of a wash. I think Pouncey's still better than Finney or Kendrick Green's going to be right now. We look over on the left side, you have Dotson in for Filer, which I think that's an upgrade, actually. At left tackle, we're moving Chucks over to left tackle, which he's never played before for Villanueva. Again, with the way Villanueva played last year, I just don't necessarily see it as that big of a dip. If anything, it's going to be a wash or an improvement. And then at right tackle, the guy who won the job last year but blew out his knee, unfortunately, in the first half of week 1 is Zach Banner. As long as his knee hasn't caused him to, he's a big guy. If he hasn't gained a lot of weight and become really slow on his feet, I think he'll be fine at right tackle. So again, I think at the worst case scenario, I think the offensive line will stay the same, which was slightly below average. But I think it could be in the top 12 offensive lines in the league. But again, maybe I'm biased. For record prediction, I predict the Pittsburgh Steelers will go 11-6. And I think they're going to exceed expectations. A lot of people, Vegas has set the odds at 8.5. So basically they're saying this is the year that either Mike Tomlin's going to go below 500 or just barely above 500. I think the Steelers are a better team. I mean, think about this. Rewind back, not to last year, but the year before. The Pittsburgh Steelers didn't have a quarterback. And people were like, Ben's coming back from an elbow surgery. He's old. He's fragile. I mean, the Steelers aren't going to be a winning football team. And the thing was, they were an 8-8 team that year with no quarterback play at all. So even if Ben is washed, it's still an improvement upon that team. And a lot of those guys are still there, and it's not like they're past their prime. I know the offensive line's a little bit different, but I think we've upgraded the running back position. I think we've upgraded the wide receiver position. Defense is much the same, minus like a Bud Dupree and a Mike Hilton. So I don't know why people are expecting, I've heard people say Cincinnati's going to be better than Pittsburgh this year. I honestly don't understand it, and I don't see it. So with that being said, I do expect the Steelers to contend for a playoff spot, and I think they will grab a wild card spot. And I'll let you know in later videos. Maybe we'll talk about the Ravens and the Browns of who's going to win this division. Let me leave you with this bold prediction. I think this year, Najee Harris is going to have over 1,800 yards from scrimmage. Okay, so that is rushing and receiving. I'm telling you, if you guys want to make some money right now on FanDuel Sportsbook, Najee Harris's rushing total over or under is 1,000 yards. That is an absolute lock to me. That is free money. Barring him blowing out his knee, Okay. Knock on wood, he doesn't. All right. He's getting over 1,000 yards. The Steelers are going to go through whatever they have to get Najee over 1,000 yards to make sure they implement this running game. I think they want to get back to quote unquote Steeler football. And I think they're going to do whatever they can to get Najee the ball. But I also think he's a far above average pass catcher out of the backfield. I'm not saying he's at Le'Veon Bell levels right now, but I also, for a back that size, we don't see it that often. I think he kind of compares to maybe like an Aaron Jones in the way he catches the ball. So definitely check that out. Make sure you put that money down. You can thank me later. And guys, if you like the episode, please click like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.